And those are the ballers of the week. So now we head to the waiver wire pickups of week 17. You you may be like John. If you're not like John and I and you actually won, congratulations. You're going to need these guys. Or if you're battling for positioning, whether you're in a dynasty league or for pride and or just want to avoid last place, here are some waiver wire targets that may help you in those situations for week 17. So John, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that if you're listening to this, you've made it to your fantasy championship. If not, and you're like me and you still play for pride and you still want to um, not necessarily give a boost to who, because it's tough because whoever is in the fantasy championship, there is one person who is going to be below the other in the waiver wire order. And so if those are the only two people playing the waivers, basically the guy who's in front of the other has the ultimate advantage this week if they both need a pickup. I am the person who, even if I've missed it, I play the waiver wire every week just to make sure that there isn't that. I mean, they still have an advantage, but maybe they don't have like the top option of the week, just because in a normal week they wouldn't. Anyway, so the week 17 waivers, and I'm gonna have to change it on the fly because initially I had Jimmy Garoppolo on there. He is on the post, but I forgot and was informed on the post he is injured and he was probably not going to play. I've heard that the injury is probably going to take like 5 to 6 weeks to heal, so he's probably not going to play this week. So on the fly, we're going to say we're going to change that quarterback from Jimmy Garoppolo to, let me scroll through here and see the matchups that we got this week. Um, and it's tough because Carson Wentz got COVID too. He would have been a solid option. We'll say Mac Jones from the New England Patriots. He plays the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 2-13, probably have zero motivation to play anyway. Just not a very good team. And we've seen that quarterbacks can be fantasy relevant against them in a variety of ways, whether that's Zach Wilson running for 91 yards and a touchdown or, shredding them through the air. I think this is a bounce back week for Mac Jones, most likely because, I mean, last week he didn't have a great game against Buffalo either. So why not bounce back and just beat up on the Jags? And you know that Bill Belichick and the way that he is, they're going to handle them pretty easily. Moving on to running back on schedule with the post. Boston Scott from the Philadelphia Eagles. Miles Sanders is hurt. Pretty plain and simple. They run the ball a lot, so you want whoever the number one option is. I expect Jordan Howard to get involved. I don't know the status on it, like if he's injured, whatever's happening. I just know that since Miles Sanders has come back, he's not really been playing. If he is healthy, I expect him to get involved if Miles Sanders does miss time, but Boston Scott should still be probably the go-to guy. And he's always good for a couple goal line carries. He even got a touchdown this past week against the Giants. So Boston Scott, definitely a solid pickup. Next, due to the James Robinson injury, Dare Agumbalwale. I hope I pronounced that right. If I butchered it, feel free to correct me in the comments. But he is the Jacksonville Jaguars running back of choice now that James Robinson is out. It's going to be tough to truly decide if you want to start him because they play the Patriots, but the volume will be there. He got a lot. I think he had 16 touches after the James Robinson injury last week. So if you need volume, he's probably guaranteed it. Next to running back, Rex Burkhead from the Houston Texans. Once again, a tough choice if you want to start him this upcoming week because they play the 49ers. But still, I mean, they've shown that they're willing to let him be the workhorse when David Johnson isn't playing. And so, once again, volume is there. And he just came off a really solid performance against the Chargers, although their run defense is way worse than the Niners. Next to running back, Jarrett Patterson from the Washington football team. He is a big handcuff if you're a Antonio Gibson owner, especially if you're in the championship with Antonio Gibson, because JD McKissick has been moved on to IR. So now it's Patterson and Gibson. And just honestly, with the state of COVID, like if Gibson gets ruled out, you need to have Patterson ready to go to plug into your lineup. That's just really how it's got to be. And it's unfortunate that that's how it is these days. But like even, I know all the Kelsey owners can relate to me of having to miss him this past week in a playoff game. It was pretty crucial and pretty tough because I know I lost one of my leagues by like 10 and my tight end that I replaced him with put up like 5. So you think that Kelsey can put up like 15 and probably win me that game. Anyway, so Jarrett Patterson from the Washington football team, you want to have him, especially once again, if you're an Antonio Gibson owner. Moving on to wide receiver, Isaiah McKenzie from the Buffalo Bills. He filled in for the slot duties with Cole Beasley being out. And I don't know the status of Beasley when it comes to the COVID stuff, but he is unvaccinated, very openly unvaccinated. And so, there is risk of him potentially even missing another game. Also, Gabriel Davis got COVID. So, the role has opened up for Isaiah McKenzie to become more involved in this offense. And so if the opportunity presents itself, definitely pick him up, because after last week, we saw he can get heavily involved when he is given the opportunity and he can perform. And they play the Falcons this upcoming week. So if he has a very similar chance due to Beasley or Gabriel Davis being out, he could even be someone that makes his way into your lineup. Next, wide receiver Josh Palmer. I misspelled his name on the post. Josh Palmer from the Los Angeles Chargers. Also a player who, due to the absence of Mike Williams, the volume is there. He's been getting involved. Last week was a little tough to gauge because Keenan Allen also didn't really get involved. And they play the Broncos this upcoming week. So it's, once again, another play that's hard to start, but it's the fantasy championship. If you're desperate, you want to look for volume. This is a guy who could get it. Another similar player when it comes to volume, Allen Lazard. If Marquez Valdes-Scantling is missing games, Allen Lazard has proven that he can be the number 2 option in this offense. Devontae Adams is one of those players that I like to call a black hole of targets. He's sort of like Christian McCaffrey, to where the offense is always going to funnel through him. But that doesn't mean that rules out other players from getting involved. And often those players will become overlooked. Packers playmakers outside of Devontae Adams and maybe the running backs often do get overlooked, but they can provide fantasy relevant performances when they need to. And Allen Lazard, if Marquez Valdes-Scantling is not playing, can absolutely be that number 2 option. And they do play the Vikings, who have a terrible secondary. And the last time they played, it was a shootout. So once again, if MVS misses this game, Allen Lazard could have a great performance. Moving on to tight end, Cole Kmet from the Chicago Bears. Not an amazing performance against the Seahawks, but it's the tight end position. There's not a lot of depth, and Cole Kmet, he runs a large percentage of their passing plays. He runs routes on. He does have a solid target share. The one downfall of Cole Kmet is that Jimmy Graham comes in for the red zone and steals a lot of red zone targets. But if you're desperate at tight end, like I was last week, missing Kelsey, Cole Kmet is a decent option to replace him. And finally, Gerald Everett from the Seattle Seahawks, similar to where tight end is a very thin position, but with the offense's inability to get the ball to DK Metcalf, it's kind of been everything over the middle that has benefited Tyler Lockett, but also it has benefited Gerald Everett, who has gotten more involved over the last couple of months, as Russell Wilson honestly just isn't able to necessarily make the deep throws. He looks to the short stuff, and if you're a PPR guy, Gerald Everett has been pretty decent, able to get about 4 to 5 catches in some of these games. So that is the waiver wire options for week 17. I imagine that doesn't apply to most people, but if you're in your fantasy championship and for any reason, COVID affects your roster, do not look further than these guys. These are solid options amongst whoever could be potentially available on your waiver wire this week.
Alrighty, so that'll do it for us. We'll be back Thursday. I don't think there's any Thursday game, right? Let me double check. I think that's the last Thursday game. I'm gonna double check. Week 17. Yep, no Thursday game. All games are on Sunday and Monday. So we'll be back Thursday to make the rest of our picks, or all of our picks. No Thursday game, so you don't have to. You can get our picks before the games start. Actually, this time, even though we usually do Thursday right now. But anyways, hope you enjoyed your fantasy weekend. Unlike us, we had a tough time, but it's a drug. We love it. Nonetheless, we'll see you next time. Have a nice one.